There you go. All right. So we are recording. There's only a couple of you here, which, although unfortunate, this tends to happen with these live events that I put in the middle of the day, because there is no pleasing everyone's time, unfortunately. So what I'm going to do is we're recording. We're going to go for about an hour. There might be a few people coming in. I've got some PowerPoint stuff to show you, but it's going to be more us having a bit of a chat, to be honest. And if you came to do a private session with me, this would be how I taught you. We'd have a chat, we'd work out some stuff, we'd go through some myths, and then we would sort some stuff out. We might get down on the floor and do some stuff. We might stand up and do some stuff, but we'll see how it goes. We'll see what you guys need in terms of support. So thank you, first of all, for signing up. We are going to have a general chat today about the perinatal space, hence why it is called the perinatal space, because there is so much misinformation out there, so much conflicting information and advice. I think I completely understand why pregnant women are almost frozen when they get pregnant and told they can't do something and they can do this, but don't do this, and do it in this way, but lift this weight at the same time. And they're so confused. So then when they're getting all of this advice, and then when they come, I know you guys are both Pilates instructors, so I'm going to play it from that angle. When they come into a Pilates space and we're like, yeah, you can do all of that stuff, don't worry about it. They're like, oh my God, yet another opinion. I'm so confused right now over what I can and I cannot do. And that's really for us to understand, and to be able to talk to them, because often the people that they've been told by, you can't do this, 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 and this, are doctors, people that are seen as superior and should be listened to. But often those people don't have an idea of what we do in the Pilates space or in the yoga space or in the personal training space. So it can be really, really hard to get these women on our side and trust us and be able to move with freedom and autonomy and all the things that we want to promote for these women. So what was really, really key in being able to take away from today is knowing what you're talking about on a level up here, so that when you come to explain it, you're explaining it on this kind of level to someone that has no anatomy knowledge, or maybe it's their first baby and it caught them off guard, and then, they just weren't prepared. So we've got to be able to explain to them why they can do certain things, because they'll come in with, I can't do this, 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 and this whole list of cannot do's. And I don't know about you, but I find that a really negative mindset for them to already be stuck in. I can't do this. When actually there's a whole lot that they, first of all, can do, but secondly, should be doing, because pregnancy may not be the time to get the fittest and in the best shape of your life, but it definitely is the time to be laying down some strong foundations, some strong boundaries, so that when you're in the postnatal space, which we are going to include in today, perinatal meaning that whole time around pregnancy, both before and after. When you then get into that postnatal space and you have this new demand on you, quite literally, you then are very, very clear that you also have a job to get your body not necessarily back to where it used to be, but I don't love that languaging. I think that's quite misleading, because your body has changed probably forever. Not necessarily a bad way. Actually, there's some very, very positive changes for women that come after that. But in a way that you now need to take on a new identity, but also not only be a mom, but find their identity as well. So we are going to chat all about that today. Don't worry, you will have the recording. So that I stay on track, I'm going to teach a little bit and then I'm going to stop for questions. So if I'm teaching and you suddenly have an urge to ask a question, either just mentally make a note of it or physically make a note of it. And then when I stop, ask that question. Okay. So I promise I'll stop for questions. So I will only show you the boring PowerPoint stuff if I need to illustrate a point. Okay, I'm not going to actually bore you by PowerPoint. What's really important to remember is that we, all of us, have 4 different bodies: physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional. Okay. Now, I think as Pilates instructors, yoga instructors, PTs, anyone in the fitness space or the movement space, we're pretty good at dealing with the physical body. We know what we're doing. All right. We know all the exercises. We know how to adapt for people. And if we don't know, we're pretty good at asking and finding out and researching or going on another course or taking a masterclass. The mental side of things, I think most of us are also pretty good at that. We know what makes our clients tick, what doesn't make them tick. This is more in the one-to-one space rather than the class space. But often, we know when to quicken our beat or raise our voice slightly to get people moving. And we know when to bring it down a notch when people need a breather. So I think the mental and the physical are quite well covered. But what maybe is not as well covered is not necessarily spiritual. I think there's a space for that. And I'm definitely not as into that as I should be. But for me, the emotional component around perinatal, or around the perinatal space is something that is not talked about enough. Now, women, whether outside of the perinatal space, have us, we are cyclical beings, right? We have hormones that hopefully do this in a nice wave arrangement. At a certain age, they tend to not do that, but that's another discussion. But when you're pregnant, obviously those hormones are doing something completely different. And so I'm not telling you guys to go away and do a psychology degree anytime soon, but having that understanding of, okay, I'm a woman and I get emotional at certain times of the month and feel like just sitting on the couch at certain times of the month, and I'm not pregnant. So how might these ladies be feeling when they come into my room, either in a group and they've had little to no sleep, and they've maybe had awful morning sickness, and it's understanding the level at which they come into the room, and are you able as an instructor, and this is where your talents really lie, are you able to meet every lady if it's a class, or one client if it's a single session, where they're at? Are you able to meet them where they're at for that day and that hour, and give them what they need in that day and that hour? So it's a little bit of kind of reading their mind and reading their body language as well. And this unfortunately can't be taught. It is a matter of experience and doing repetitive sessions over and over again. But I promise you will get there. Okay. Now, if we think back to the physical body, which we're so good at working with, let's be honest, I want to break that down a little bit more, because it's not just about movement and what they're doing in your sessions. Within the physical body is also the nutrition, their lifestyle, their work. Are they on their feet all day? Are they sitting all day? What's going on in their family life? What's happened in the previous birth stories for them? Like, have they had a miscarriage before? Have they had 2 C-sections before? I've got a client right now who messaged me the other day and she goes, I am feeling so weak and so dejected. Yeah, dejected, because I'm on baby number 3 in quite a short space of time, it has to be said. I think she's going to have 3 kids under 6 when she gives birth to this one. And she's planning her 3rd C-section. And she just said to me, I don't know what to do. And I was like, okay, well, she knows I'm a straight talker. So I said, well, first off, I wouldn't be having a 3rd C-section. If we can avoid cutting the material that is your body, the better. However, we kind of have to, that's not my choice. And it's not her choice either. She can have, there's obviously 2 types of C-sections, elective and emergency. So she can say, I don't want a C-section, but when the time comes, if there's a complication that requires her to have an emergency C-section, unfortunately, her choice is then taken away from her. So, and also, we can't get away from the fact that she's already had 2. So I said to her, I'm going to literally give you a list of 4 things that you're going to be working through. You can start them now, even when you're pregnant with number 3. First of all, you need to get the scar tissue sorted out. Now, we are going to talk more about C-sections at the end. I've kind of gone off tangent already. Shocking, I know. Get the scar tissue sorted. With scar tissue, just a brief note on scar tissue. If you imagine I've got a scar here, right? and I've had an open wound here and it's stitched, and I cross over my t-shirt and I tack it down and I stitch it like that. Now, if I go to lift my arm, it is restricted because of that stitch. Yes, I can push through, but it's not as free as if I didn't have that stitch and that tacking down there. Okay. When that's a C-section, and remember with a C-section, there's actually two incisions. There's the horizontal external incision we see on the outside, but there's also an internal one going vertically. Okay, and we don't ever see that because it's internal. So both of those scars scar tissue grows in and down. So it's like the roots of a tree or a plant, if you like, growing in and down and tacking down the layers of material, your body, your tissue, into one another. So then if we have that same analogy that I've just spoken about with my shoulder happening down below your belly button, it actually causes this almost rounded posture and a pulling around of the tissue from the lower back. And that then has a big pull on the thoracolumbar fascia around the lower back. And this is when we start to get lower back pain, pelvic pain, lack of movement in the thoracic, a lack of ability to fully take an inhalation because I'm stuck here. So there's all of these things to think about when she's had previous births. If she's had previous C-sections, like this client who's had 2 C-sections already, her physicality right now might not be where it needs to be, yet she's already pregnant with number 3. So it all comes down to meeting her where she's at, all right, and working with the client that we have in front of us. It might not be the body that we want to work with. She might not be looking like our Pilates manual anytime soon, but most people don't, let's be honest. Okay, so let's go right back to the beginning to talk about the first trimester. Okay, I'm going to go through the 3 trimesters and then I'm going to open the floor for some questions. So the first trimester is anywhere from 0 to 12 weeks, so conception to 12 weeks. And often there's a lot of, I've had women before who have gotten through the entire first trimester and not even known they're pregnant. I know, right? What? It's less common now because a lot of women are using, including myself, use period tracking apps. And if you're a few days late, this app goes, excuse me, you're late. All right. They're kind of pushy like that. But then again, your body also has that internal rhythm, that infradian rhythm, not your circadian, your infradian rhythm, where it goes, something's not right. I'm bloated, my boobs are sore. Could you check your app, please? Because I feel like you should have come on a few days ago. So not knowing you're pregnant is becoming less of an issue. However, it could still happen. Often in people outside of the fitness space, outside of the wellness space, who are not so in tune with their body. And for us, everyone sitting in this room and in this space today is almost alien to us because we're all so in tune with our bodies. How can that ever happen? How could you be pregnant for 12 weeks and not know? It has happened. But already what starts to happen here is your joints start to get more lax. As soon as conception happens, your hormones start changing. The body is a very smart piece of kit. It starts already to go, okay, we're pregnant. There's a baby growing. We need to prepare this body for birth. And it starts right from the very start. It starts releasing lots of hormones, but one in particular that we need to be very aware of is relaxin. So relaxin makes your joints more lax, your ligaments more lax. You'll probably have met a lot of pregnant women who are not necessarily flexible there, but they do this with their fingers and they'll get it right back onto their hand, or they'll be super bendy through the pelvis. Now, as nice as it would be for this relaxin to be honed in on our pelvis and the pelvic floor in order to make it more flexible in order for the baby to come out, it's like taking a paracetamol. The paracetamol doesn't know where you want it to go in the body. It doesn't know you want it for a headache. It just deals with all pain in the body. All right. The same can be said of relaxin. So you get a bit loosey-goosey everywhere with relaxin. Okay. The body temperature will also slightly increase. Now, if we already know these two things as instructors, we already know that someone's in their first trimester, we can go, all right, well, I'm gonna when I give the rest of the class quite an expansive, not necessarily stretch, but quite an expansive range to work in, I'm going to hold that person back. Or maybe I'll give her an ankle weight so she can't go as far in that hip extension or whatever you've given them. In terms of the body temperature, you want to make sure that those clients, especially if it's a workout that lasts more than 60 minutes, have hydration by them. Often not only water either, it would need to be like an electrolyte, either sachet or mix, or you can make your own, easily finding recipes online. The diaphragm as well starts to elevate and tension because everything's being moved to make space for the baby to grow. All right. So all these subtle changes start to happen in the first trimester. They also have the increased need to urinate more. So that already starts. You probably have had pregnant friends who in the last trimester, they need to pee like every 15 or 20 minutes. All right. They get annoyed with it. And like I say, that connective tissue becomes a little bit more elastic. All right. So things to look out for. Bear in mind as well that a lot of people will choose not to, and also legally they don't have to. When I say legally, I'm talking more in a European setting. For those of you in Dubai, I'm not sure what the rules are here, or even if we have any rules, but they don't need to tell you before they're 13 weeks. So Stop Pilates, who I trained with, and Balanced Body Pilates, who I now work with, they don't require the client to tell us they are pregnant before 13 weeks. Okay. Yeah. So therefore, nothing needs to change. They can lay on their back, they can lay on their tummy, they can do jump board, they can do whatever. They can, lift weights, and I'm quite strong on that. We should all be lifting weights. I'll get onto that in a second. By the time we roll on a little bit further into the second trimester, we're talking weeks 13 to 26. The joint laxity will be carried on. So everything that we started in trimester 1, 0 to 12 weeks, will carry on and be built upon. Pregnancy brain is a real thing, trust me. So I often give one instruction at one time. And I'll be honest, I don't necessarily think that's exclusive to my pregnant clients. I think one instruction at one time is plenty for most people these days. We're so bombarded with information and so much going on that I think actually I would really benefit from one instruction at one time. Do that, complete it. Then what do you want me to do next? Rather than have all of these things going on at any given time. So in the second trimester, the fetus is roughly the size of a soccer ball, basketball, that kind of size. And what you'll need to do with your pregnant clients is move them. They'll need to change positions more frequently. They will get uncomfortable. This is a generalization, by the way. I also have clients who are happy to lie on their back for the whole session. Not that I ever do that, but if I ask them. So what I do, like I had a reformer session the other day, and I've got someone who's been coming to me for years on the reformer, and she is well into her second, maybe even her third trimester now. And every session, I'm like, how are you feeling? Are you happy to lie on your back today? And she's like, yeah, absolutely. She's like, why are you even asking me? She just wants to be included in the regular class. But I will, once they're in their second and third trimesters, always ask, are you okay to lie on your back? Some of them are, rather, and some of them are not. If they are not, you give them a bolster. I use the yoga bolsters if you're from Platform Studios, which are about this size. It's a big cushion that I've rolled over. If you have a bolster, great. That's going to go behind their scapula or their upper back, bra strap area, when everyone else is lying down on their back. And that just gives them that lovely incline. If you're in a studio where you're lucky enough to have a Pilates wedge, use that. If you are not in a studio, we have anything and you're at home, stack up some cushions, anything to get their spine on a bit of an incline so they're not lying on their back. It just is client dependent. Like I say, I've had women in their third trimester. Yeah, I'm fine to lie on my back. Not a problem. The key is to not keep them there too long. Even if they're like, I feel fine, I can stay here longer. especially in the getting into the late second, third trimester, you don't want to keep them there too long, because what can happen if the baby's very big is the baby puts pressure on the mother's vena cava to the heart. Obviously, we want to avoid heart attacks in our class. It's never a great look. But again, to counter that, the body is very, very clever. It's not going to have a mom who's heavily pregnant lying on her back and go, we've lost blood supply to the heart here. We'll just stay here a bit longer. It's going to give her a signal. Hey, excuse me, you need to move. You need to move. All right, she's going to get dizzy before it gets to that stage. So that's where the scare tactics, if you like, come from. Oh, don't lie on your back if you're pregnant. No, don't lie on your back. Oh my God, you might die. Okay. But that's where it comes from. It's just kind of been blown out of proportion, unfortunately. Oh, I like to listen, I like to do this in every class. However, really drill at home that ankle mobility is key here. Ankles become puffy and swollen. All right. I mean, this can happen in the first trimester, but particularly second and third. You need to focus on that ankle mobility. I cannot tell you the number of instructors that I see who do reformer in particular. They do feet and straps, and they'll do something like bend and stretch, and they don't even mention the feet. And I'm like, no, when you extend the leg, the knee and the hip, you point the toe and you plantar flex the ankle. When you bend the knee or flex the knee and the hip, you dorsiflex the ankle. So it's an ankle workout too. No one seems to be cueing that these days. I don't know why, but it's a key. It's really great to get ankle work in. The gastrocnemius complex and the soleus is actually known as the second heart. So they pump, but they can only pump if the ankle moves. And they pump the blood and the lymphatic drainage back up to the heart. Okay, so ankle mobility is key, absolutely key. Okay, I'm going to pause for questions after the third trimester. I'm getting onto the third trimester now. So third trimester, anything from 27 weeks up to the 40-week mark. Maybe they will need to go in before 40 weeks and get the baby out, but that most gynecological doctors are happy to leave the baby in there to bake for 40 weeks. Okay, everything we spoke about in the first and the second trimester is still happening. It's just, again, built upon and developed. Okay. They may start to get heartburn and shortness of breath due to the size of the fetus. So again, this is client dependent. This is dependent on the size of their baby, which is often due to genetics of mom and dad. But also you can imagine, like, the diaphragm's now up here, her esophagus is being a bit squished. So that heartburn or that acid reflux, a lot of pregnant women get acid reflux. They can't take a full inhalation. So they're really struggling to breathe. So slow things down for these women. Focus on the breath. Focus on teaching them to breathe into the back of their rib cage and the side of their rib cage. I love the arc barrel, but if you don't have an arc barrel, you can use, again, a rolled up towel or a bolster sat here to breathe over in like a mermaid position and focus on breathing into one side of the ribs. So I like to do a lot of breath work with my prenatal clients in particular. And that's not only to encourage that full breath and help her to feel better and help her to feel like she can take a full breath, but it is also diaphragm mirrors the pelvic floor. So what happens with the diaphragm, if the diaphragm rises and domes as she exhales, the pelvic floor will lift and dome too as she exhales, like two jellyfish being pulled up. As she inhales and the diaphragm flattens out and down, the pelvic floor bears down. Okay, so if we can access her breath and improve what's going on with her breath, we can access her pelvic floor. All right. You will never hear me cue pelvic floor and definitely not in a regular class, but probably I don't teach any prenatal specific classes anymore. I'm just trying to think back to when I did in my old studio. I think I didn't cue it. I just taught them briefly what it was and where it was. So they knew, right? Because it's a prenatal specific class. Would I cue it? No, because it's a complete waste of time. They are regular women, often in busy executive jobs, who are in for a Pilates class to move and then get in their car, go to work, think only about work until I see them the next time, which might be in 2 days or 3 days. They don't care. Okay. Now, in an ideal world, as an educator, I wish everyone cared. I wish everyone was there to learn about their hips and centration of the hip and how their glutes worked and the balance between the glutes and the hip flexors and the pelvic floor and the outer hips and the inner thighs. Of course, I would love everyone to know that because I'd love to teach it to them. But a lot of people are not interested. So you have to find a way in a class of getting as much information and as much education out without them going, oh, shut up. Okay. And that's a skill as well. Trust me. All right. All right. Before I go on to what I call the fourth trimester, are there any questions so far? Let me know.
No, I'm fine.
Okay, cool. Fiona, all good. Latifah's coming in.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the breath work. If you would do it at the start, would you like focus on that at the start of your class before everyone gets moving, or just kind of layer it in throughout everything? Maybe like focusing a little bit more on it in certain times in the class, or yeah, just wondering how you would.
I mean, great question. It really depends. Because when we learn our Pilates 5 basic principles or 6 basic principles, depending on whoever you trained with, breath is obviously like, right, you have to teach this first. And it's true, unless we're breathing properly, we can't really move properly. We can't really engage what we're looking to engage. However, I'm not going to be able to answer this yes or no. But I'm going to give you more information to hopefully allow you to make a more informed decision about where you put it. Play around with it as well, right? It depends on the crowd you've got in front of you.
Yeah.
I like to get it in at the beginning of the class, and I'll start with something really simple. So I might have them standing. I'll get them to notice where the weight is on their feet. And then I might just say, right, hold a ball in your hand or something like that. Right, you're going to inhale to lift the ball up and exhale through your pursed lips as you lower the ball. So they're doing a movement and they're getting what they consider a warm up. But so we're not just standing there breathing. Where I feel a lot of people get lost and drift off is if they come into a Pilates class and we just get them to breathe. A lot of them are like, oh, this is not for me. Remember, pregnant women in particular are there for a workout. They do not want to be sat in the corner and told just to breathe because they're pregnant and you really shouldn't be doing much else right now. So I would say if you compare the breath with a basic movement, lifting the arms, lifting the heels, doing, I don't know, a knee bend, and getting the breath and the warm up to mesh together and intertwine, I think you're onto a winner there. That is what I do in my classes. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the only way to skin the cat. All right. It just means that you maybe play around with it. I would definitely cue the breath all the way through, though, because a lot of people will A, hold their breath, but B, hold their jaw really tight as well. And the jaw and the sacrum are very closely connected. And if we have a problem with the jaw and the sacrum, we definitely have a problem with the pelvic floor.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Nice. All right. Hi, Latifah. Sorry, I didn't see you there. So you're a little bit late, but you will get the recording. Don't worry. All right. I'm going to move on, guys. And I'll stop again for a little question break in a second. Now, I think there's 4 trimesters, which I know is a little bit back to front, but for me, the 4th trimester is your postnatal period of time. Now, we have been wrongly told that this is 6 to 8 weeks. We get told, oh, 6 to 8 weeks should be good to go. Or particularly after a C-section, they tell you not to drive for 6 to 8 weeks. I actually don't know one woman that stuck to that rule, I'll be honest. She's in the car about 2 weeks afterwards. But 6 to 8 weeks is way too short for me. Really, if we think about this logically, postnatal is all of the years after you've given birth. Surely it carries on forever. But obviously don't tell a pregnant woman that because they may run in the other direction, even though they shouldn't be running. So for me, I like, and I am just going to share my screen with you guys right now because I have something that will drive this home to you. Okay, so we are sharing. Can you see my screen, my notes, fourth trimester? All good? You can? Okay, cool. All right. So this is what we've been told for the longest time, right? We've been told, okay, you're pregnant for 9 months, and then 6 to 8 weeks later, you're good to go. Okay, what actually happens? So you've got this lovely curve here the whole time they're pregnant, and then they kind of just drop off here. The hospital sends you home after birth because they're really not that interested in you once the baby's out. But actually, it's more like this. It's more an even curve. This is what I say to people to help them manage their expectations after birth. Okay, yes, you're pregnant for 9 months, da 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 da. Here we have the birth. But then if you were pregnant for 9 months and your body took 9 months to get to that peak, really, it's only logical that it takes another 9 months to come back down the other side. Now, for me, this is best case scenario. Okay. I have clients who, I'm going to stop sharing that now. I have clients who, frankly, tell me that it takes 2 years minimum for them to not feel like they're postnatal anymore. Okay. And the whole time that they're breastfeeding, the relaxin, the hormone that's released from conception, what we spoke about earlier, that makes you all loosey goosey and prepares your body and your pelvic floor to loosen up and give birth. As long as you're breastfeeding, that relaxin keeps pumping out. So your body is still in that state of hormonally prenatal. All right. So 9 months to 2 years, I would say. And unfortunately, there's not many pregnant women that are very happy when you tell them that. They would like to believe it was 6 to 8 weeks, but I also like not to bullshit my clients and for them to be prepared and for them to have their expectations managed in the nicest way. And you know what? Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth. And that's, but I think you should always tell them the truth, again, in a polite, kind way, of course. But it's better than telling them 6 weeks you'll be back to normal and then them coming to you on week 7 going, I still can't lift the shopping bag out the back of the car. Why are we not further forward? Okay. So are there any things I would avoid in this prenatal journey? I'm talking trimesters 1 through 3, weeks 0 to 40. Yes, there are a few, but not a huge amount because I'm not big on the can'ts, remember? I would avoid static stretching. So by static stretching, I mean hanging out in a stretch. So a classic kind of hip flexor stretch, going into a lunge and just hanging out in your ligaments, particularly the hip flexors. All right, guys, they're tight because they're weak. Please stop stretching them. Okay, that's a whole hip flexor workshop on itself, which I might put on towards the end of the year because it's very popular. I would avoid holding breath. Okay, as we spoke about, the diaphragm needs to move. If the diaphragm is stuck and rigid, first of all, she can't breathe, major issue. Secondly, the pelvic floor is stiff and rigid. That's another issue. So we need to be encouraging that breath. Even outside of the perinatal space, I tell all my clients, if you find that we're getting into an exercise and it's getting a little bit more challenging and you've gone into that holding breath, stop, position yourself, start breathing. And then once you've got your breath under control again, now you can start moving. Okay. So that might just be a cue that you use with people. I avoid them attempting to increase their fitness level or lose weight. This is not common. However, it has happened to me as an instructor where I've had one client who wanted to run a marathon when she was pregnant, and I had to kind of go, I don't think that was the time, and manage her expectations again and give her. She's a very type A personality. Focus. I'm doing that marathon. The pregnancy is an inconvenience, basically. So it was, again, finding out how people tick, right? Finding out what makes them tick. So for her, I said, well, why don't we focus on putting the marathon back a year and focus on your strength right now and giving her goals to meet with that. And that seemed to work with her. I also had another client, and it's the reason I put lose weight on this slide. It seems something completely opposite, but she came in and said, oh, I want to start Pilates with you 2 or 3 times a week to lose weight. And I thought maybe I'd got the wrong sheets or her welcome sheet from reception, because it said on there she was prenatal. And I went, I'm sorry, you want me to help you lose weight, well, but you're pregnant. And she went, yeah, I know, I just don't want to gain any weight. I know, right? So like alarm bells started ringing for me, and I went, huh. So I worked with her a couple of times, and once and from speaking to her and realizing again what made her tick, I realized there was major issues here. Now that may not be the conversation you want to have. I thought it was uncomfortable. I was sitting on a pen. It may not be the conversation you want to have with a client, but this client did need to go and speak to a professional, because it's not normal to be pregnant and want to lose weight at the same time. Listen, she went on to have a very successful pregnancy, 2 beautiful twin boys, and I'm happy to report everything is good. But it was me recognizing that at the start and going, oh, there's something not quite right here. And being able to see her a few times, win her trust. Because if I'd have said to her straight off the bat when I had that welcome sheet, no, she'd have gone to someone else who would have given her everything she wanted. So I said to her, okay, well, we'll see about that. Let's get a movement session in today, because she obviously loved to move. She wants to lose weight. And I worked her really hard within safe parameters. And then I think I saw her, and on the 3rd time, it was very, very clear to me that there was a psychological issue. So that's when I said to her, I think to get you through this pregnancy, I am going to work you hard. You've seen that. I'd won that side of her already, but I would love for you to go and speak to someone. I can recommend people, or you can search out your own person. And again, they don't like hearing the truth, but it was very clear to me by that stage. All right. So that is the can do's and the cannot do's. Oh, sorry, the last one. Inverted positions. So inverted positions are anything where your pelvis is higher than your heart. So now I'm not on this incline, but now the bolster or the lift might be under my sacrum or my bottom. And I've got the baby pushing up into my chest, right? Again, for the same reason that we spoke about with having a pregnant woman lying on her back too long. We don't want to have them in inverted positions for too long, all right? Or in inverted positions at all. Sorry, no inverted positions, all right? So that would be in mat Pilates, that would be things like hip rolls. They can still do them, but this bolster or packed up cushions need to go underneath their shoulder blades or their bra strap, so that when they lift their hips, they're just in one long line. They're not inverted. All right. On the reformer, you could just get them to come lower. All right. But you don't want them in an inverted position. Questions before we move on to things like C-sections and diastasis, because I am going to move on to that right now. No? Okay.
Yes, I have a question. Hi, Victoria. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. I actually have 2 questions. So my first question is, I usually get clients who have never done Pilates before, prenatal, obviously. And they call me and they say, I've heard Pilates is good for pregnancy and I want to tone. That's their number 1 goal. And I'm like, do you do any movement practice? Do you exercise? Do you go to the gym? Do you lift weights? And they're like, no, we just decided to do Pilates. This is where I get stuck, where do I start from? How do I get them moving? How do I, tone them up? How do I reach their goals? I think that's where I get stuck most of the time, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a great question, Latifa, and I think it's a really common thing for us instructors to have. The woman that has done nothing, no preparation, finds herself pregnant and then goes, oh, I saw on Instagram that Pilates for pregnancy was really, really helpful. So they come to you. And again, it's about teaching the client in front of you and meeting them where they're at. So by no means turn them away. Absolutely work with them, but you're going to have to start right from base camp, right? Right from level 1. which is getting them either on the mat or reformer. Look, I love reformer for pregnant women, I'll be honest. So if you're reformer trained, I would say if you can get them in for one mat session a week and one reformer session a week, great. Okay. If you want to do all reformer sessions with them, you could. The reason I love the reformer, particularly for pregnant clients, is you've got the resistance of the springs, which offers them support in things like side splits and back rowing and things like that. But it also gives them the resistance to push again. So they feel they're doing more work and they're getting a workouts. Okay. But it's really where you start with these women is no different from where you would start with a client who was not pregnant. You'd start them with the basic moves, see how they handle the basic moves, teach them the breath. All right. And always cue the breath. Teach them, if you want to tell them what their pelvic floor is and where it is and why it's really important to them right now, you can do that too. So it's not a million miles away from a regular new client, if I'm honest. All right. You don't necessarily, particularly if they're in their first trimester, you definitely don't need to teach them any different, treat them, sorry, or teach them for that matter, any differently.
Yeah. So even in their first trimester, I would teach them neutral, pelvis, imprint. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Okay.
could absolutely teach all of that because remember, I think you didn't catch this bit because I didn't let you in time. But I think the first trimester, many women either don't know they're pregnant
Mm.
or they choose not to tell people they're pregnant in the first trimester. In the first trimester, they're under no legal obligation to tell us they are pregnant, even if they know.
Okay. All right. And then on the reformer, so we'd avoid also feet and strap, right? Like bend, stretch, lift and lower.
You could do that.
Or really?
Why would you not do that?
Because of the pelvis, like the legs lifting up might kind of be a little bit uncomfortable on the belly.
No, I mean, if
No.
it was, you would just shorten the range, but I wouldn't stop them doing it. It's a great exercise. It's great for hip stability, for ankle mobility. It's resistance. It's giving them some feedback. No, I would absolutely do feet and straps. If the only thing is, if they were not comfortable to lie on their back, say they were larger, I'd still do it, but I'd have them lying on their side and put the top foot in one strap and lower the weight.
Yeah, I always do that to side. But I've never tried legs and strap when they're like in their third trimester.
I look, if I had, so I was saying to these guys earlier that we're on, I've got one lady who's very experienced. She's been coming to me for years. She is just entering her third trimester and she's totally fine to lie on her back. However, if I had a lady who was not like that, like you say, a relative beginner to Pilates, but I'd adapt for the whole class. So I often have, without knowing, we don't know who's coming into our classes at the studio I teach at. And often I'll have a class plan in my mind, or I might even have written it down. Stranger things have happened. And they'll come in and I'll go, she's really heavily pregnant. I'm gonna have to change that. Everything I have with them lying on their back just happens on their side. The rest of the class love it. They don't know it's prenatal. They don't need to know. They're just like, oh, a new exercise, great.
Yeah, got it.
Right?
But
So
they'd be inclined, right? They'll still be inclined. I've never done like inclined, where with the Pilates wedge, the pregnancy wedge.
for which exercise? So you can do hands in straps inclined, but you wouldn't do feet in straps inclined.
Yeah, no way. Okay.
Yeah, so hands and straps you can absolutely do incline. It obviously changes the emphasis of the exercise because the line of pull and where they are in time and space is different.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yep.
no worries. All right, you guys, I'm going to move on to diastasis. We will stop again for questions, I promise. So diastasis recti, or DR for short, it's going to happen in every pregnant woman. It has to, because the baby has to have somewhere to grow. So those abdominals have to separate. So if we think of the abdominals, the six pack, whatever you want to call it, rectus abdominis, it's not breaking in half and separating, but it is moving away from one another. And the piece of tissue left underneath, called the linea alba, is basically being stretched, a bit like my t-shirt, is being stretched and made thinner. It's not ripping, it's not tearing. If it did, that would be called a hernia, and that often requires an operation to repair. So we're not going to talk about that today because that's kind of a separate conversation, and we will talk about that in a course that I have coming up. I'll tell you more about that at the end. All right, but that tissue is getting thinner. So what we're really interested in for us when a client comes to us and goes, oh my God, I have a diastasis and it looks horrible and I hate it and I want to get it better, and can you measure it and all these things, is okay, we're going to work on the strength and the integrity of that linea alba, because if that is what is, if the diastasis is going to close and they're going to have that beautiful stomach again that they so want, then that's how we do it. All right, so a diastasis, if we're getting really technical about it, is a gap of any more than 2.7 centimeters, okay, in separation. A lot of women will go, can you measure it for me? My answer is always no. Not because I'm being mean and I don't really want to put my fingers in your stomach, but it's not helpful. It is what it is. We are where we're at. We are where we are. Okay, if they want to measure it at home, let them. Okay, but I'm not someone who's going to measure. And that's also the job of really a women's health physio. Okay, so if I should have said that as well, preface with, when I'm working with prenatal clients, if it's a one-on-one, I'll say, have you seen a women's health physio? Have you had an internal examination? If they have not, I will refer them to one. It's one of the deal breakers of working with me. All right, because we can be doing all the fantastic external work, but if there's adhesions or scar tissue or God knows what still stuck up there, nothing good's going to come of that. All right. If it's a class setting and I've got a postnatal and she's got diastasis and she's worried about it, I will then suggest, I can't make her because she's in a class and it's a studio and it's not my studio. All right. But I will say, look, I really think you could benefit from just one session with a women's health physio. Would you like me to suggest someone? Okay. And then there you have it. All right. So if you guys can, those of you in Dubai, I have one, you can message me later and I'll give you her name. She's also coming on the course that I'm opening up a little bit later. But those of you that don't have one on the ground, wherever you are, to refer to, try to find one. Meet her for coffee, have a chat, make sure you guys are on the same page, all right? About what you think postnatally. And like, so Marissa, who's the lady that I generally refer to here, we met, she arrived in Dubai and we immediately met for a coffee because I saw her social media post. One of my friends was seeing her going, oh my God, she's amazing. And I was like, okay, I have to meet this woman, because really great women's health physios are thin on the ground. All right. So find one that's good, that knows what they're talking about. And you'll be flying. All right. So we have to talk about this linea alba. Now, a diastasis, remember, it can happen any length. All right. Anywhere from the xiphoid process, which is where your ribs meet here, all the way down to your pubic symphysis. All right. So it can happen anywhere. It can happen the whole way. And what is naturally happening, obviously, is that increased relaxin and flexibility is allowing that linea alba to increase its flexibility, all right? So the baby can grow. Now, how do we counter that? Because we don't want to stop it during pregnancy because the baby's got to grow. We're going to be working, butting heads with our own body. But what we do need to do is work on balance and strength. And we need to develop the appropriate tension in the body. Now, what do I mean when I say that? I mean working the muscles. So that's why I love the reformer so much. Muscles, tension, fascia. The linea alba is a piece of fascial tissue. I can't work or do sit-ups to strengthen my linea alba. That's not how it works. But I can strengthen muscles around my body that gently tension and strengthen my linea alba. Okay. So it really is about working again with resistance. And I'm a big fan of lifting weights during pregnancy. Again, not the heaviest weight you're going to lift. You're not going to a powerlifting competition, but just lifting weights. Okay. So moving on from diastasis, I'm just going to go through some of the ridiculous myths that I have heard, and no doubt you will have heard as well, pregnant women coming in to me. So number one is do not rotate. They're not allowed to rotate, apparently, when they're pregnant. Number 2 is do not flex the spine. Number 3, do not lift weights. Number 4, if you see the abs doming or coning, or like I call it a Toblerone, stop immediately. That cannot happen. And number 4, no supine work. So no lying on your back. So let's just go through the do not rotate, do not flex, and do not lift weights. Please tell me how they are living their day-to-day lives if they are not allowed to rotate their spine. That cuts out walking. Your spine rotates when you walk. So you just sit there for 9 months and we'll see you later. You can't not rotate. It's something that humans have to do to stay alive and get around. Do not flex the spine. Again, please tell me how they're living their life not flexing the spine, particularly if they've already got a little one. All right. And they're now pregnant with number 2 or number 3. They're getting down onto the floor. They're getting up. They're unloading the dishwasher. They're putting a load of laundry in. They're reaching up. They're extending the spine to put something into that cupboard. There's no way they're living their life not flexing the spine. So these women that come in and go, oh, I can't do any of this. Yeah, you can. All right. Sure, it might not be as you get larger, there's literally an object in your way. You might not be able to get as much flexion as you used to, but you can flex your spine. So it's just about educating them here. The do not lift weights. Jesus, this is one that absolutely, as my Australian friend would say, grind my gears. How are they living their lives? Because trust me, they're going and getting a heavy shopping bag out the back of a car and carrying it into their house. That's a weight. I have a friend who has a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. She is pregnant. This is the same woman. She's pregnant with number 3. She's also obviously crazy. And she picks up the 2-year-old regularly. He weighs probably 8 to 10 kilos. How is that not a weight? All right. So, and she's doing it whilst flexing and whilst rotating her spine. So we've got all 3 myths bundled together. Can we get rid of all of them? The only time that lifting weights might not be appropriate is if you've got someone who has been classed as a high-risk pregnancy, okay? This will be their gynecologist saying you're high risk, and most high-risk pregnancies are actually put on bed rest, or they may actually have stitches put into them to keep the baby inside, all right? Those are few and far between, and they definitely are not going to be the kind of women you're going to be finding in your classes, all right? They won't be allowed to exercise, so you won't have to worry about that. Myth number 4, if you see the abs dome or cone, stop immediately. Now, this happens often when we get ladies doing planks or when they're flexing their spine, they'll have that diastasis will be happening. This is most common probably postnatally, and they'll go, oh my God, and they'll have like a little Toblerone there. There's actually no evidence. Yes, whilst it might not look particularly attractive, there's no evidence that it's bad or that it's doing any damage. Often, if we get them breathing properly, as they exhale, they can draw it down, draw the abdominals in with their breath, and be absolutely fine. So that is about education and breathing. Myth number 5, no supine work. I really hope that we've gotten rid of that right now because it's down to the woman, the individual. If they are okay to lie on their back for a short period of time, there is a caveat. Okay, fine. And then we roll onto the side. We might do some side leg series here. We might roll onto the back, maybe do a couple of toe taps. Then we'll roll onto the other side, maybe do some side leg there. All right, so it's completely out, that one. Like I say, there's not a lot you can't do. I'm just going to I spoke about C-section scars at the start. So I feel, I've got some notes here, guys, but I feel that I have covered that. You know what? People go in for C-sections, not necessarily in Europe. I don't feel like it's such a mission because you've got the NHS there and it's an expensive thing. But where I am in Dubai, C-sections are probably more common than natural births. It really isn't the answer. Obviously, if it's emergency C-section, nothing you can do about that. These things happen. But try to educate your clients on the cutting of tissue, which C-section is twice, and how scar tissue heals. I can give you more information on scar tissue when we'll be talking about it in the course with Marissa as well on what she sees day to day in her clinic with women that have had C-sections. It really isn't the answer at all. So exercise considerations. When you start to think about class planning and programming, what should you be taking into consideration? Well, you should definitely be working in all planes of movement. This is kind of for every client, really, not just your perinatal space clients. Omnidirectional. Are they moving in every direction? Have we found any restrictions? Like they might be really good at rotating one way, but less good about rotating the other. Lots of standing work for your clients, lots of standing work on one leg for your perinatal clients, lots of lunges, lots of ankle mobility, as much standing as you can get them to do, and then slowly take it down to the mat, slowly bring it back up onto the mat. Can they get up and down off the floor without using their hands? Most people can't. Are they breathing in every position that they're going into? And then finally, there's a slide, and I'm going to send you these slides, guys. So yes, I know you've been taking notes. You'll also get my notes from today, so you can go over and kind of, with the recording as well. So you can just kind of absorb this on a different level again, in a few days, probably. You'll be sick of the side of me by the end of this. I have a circle and it's got the pelvic floor plan and all the things I consider: ankle mobility, breathing, hip stability, aka standing on one leg, stretching. Are they stretching? Do we want them to stretch, or can we maybe do a range of motion exercise that works just as well as stretching, so they get the effect of stretching, but it's not actually damaging their ligaments and taking advantage of that relaxin? Femoral positioning. There's so much to be said about the femur and the position of the femur and the influence that has on the tension in the pelvic floor. We want tension in the pelvic floor, but we want the appropriate tension in the pelvic floor. So all of these things. And then there's a little bit on the psycho emotional things to be thinking about. Within the slides, I've also put some studies that I looked into while I was putting this together with hyperlinks, so you can click on those and have a read of the journal articles and the studies. But this is just a little bit about today, about going over the perinatal space, giving you guys hopefully a few things to think about so that the next time a pregnant or even a postnatal client walks through the door, you can start to think about, okay, there's so much that she can and should be doing right now that I don't even have to worry about the list of cannots, because it's just not important. It's so unimportant that I'm not even going to think about it. And it's something that you probably will need to discuss with them. Now, one thing I did want to discuss with you guys before we go to questions, is if you enjoyed today and you want to know more, there's only so much I can fit into an hour, and even then I'm going over. I am going to be running the perinatal edition of the Instructor Academy, which is where you guys come in and spend 9 weeks this time with me. Let me find the chat box. So what I'm going to do is put the link in there to the page that tells you all about the Instructor Academy. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it now because I'm very excited about this. So the Instructor Academy is a course that I've been running for so long to take already qualified instructors and just give them that clarity and that confidence in their teaching. Now, last year it was the Instructor Academy. We spoke about glutes, we spoke about shoulders, we spoke about pelvic floor, we spoke about sacroiliac joints, we spoke about all of the things over about 6 weeks. I had a lot of feedback that was like, oh my God, I loved it, but I really want to dive into the perinatal space. So that's where this, the perinatal edition of the Instructor Academy was born. All right, so it really is now, we've extended it because I couldn't get everything into 6 weeks. So it's now 9 weeks. What you are going to get in this is obviously direct access to me. You will get 9 60-minute live mentoring sessions. 6 of them are with me. We're going to talk about the glutes, pelvic stability, and how that changes during pregnancy, how the glutes are affected in pregnancy, and how we can keep the glutes built in pregnancy, because they're so important. And I'm sure you've seen it. A lot of pregnant women end up with very flat gluteal mass. Not what we want. We're going to talk about the hip flexors and lower back pain and how the balance between tension and weakness needs to be kept and how you are going to do that. So these sessions are not just going to be me talking to you like we have today. All right. They're going to be active as well. We're going to do a little bit of theory, but we're going to have the mats out. I might even hop on the reformer one day if I can access one and show you some stuff on the reformer. The third section or module we're going to talk about is the shoulder complex and posture. All right, in pregnancy, because that is often missed out. We need to think about pregnancy from kind of the xiphoid process down, and we forget about all of this up here, and it has such an effect. We're going to dive really deeply into the pelvic girdle, and we're going to talk about pelvic girdle pain. We're going to talk about the sacroiliac joint and the perinatal stability of the sacroiliac joint. So we're going super deep. We're not just talking about the 3 trimesters that we have today. Then we have my good friend Marissa, the women's health physio, coming in to talk about breath mechanics and core connection. I'm looking forward to that. I know we're going to learn so much from her. We're going to do a 2-hour module just on diastasis, mostly exercise. So that will be a movement module. Then we have got a special guest who I can't reveal yet because she's about to just confirm with me, but we will have someone in to talk about programming for perinatal clients. How do you program and put a class together? It's going to be one of 2 people. I'm just waiting for one of them to confirm. And then finally, my very good guest who's been on every Instructor Academy, you may have seen clips from her, is going to be Gemma Pearson, who specializes in osteoporosis and osteopenia. We're going to be talking to her about building muscle. So Latifa, that links beautifully to your question about tone. When they say they want tone, they may not think they mean building muscle, but they mean building muscle. All right. Because when we tone a muscle, we have to build it to make it visible. So we're going to be talking to Gemma about building bone and building muscle, because when women are pregnant, they actually go into slight osteopenia and osteoporosis. All right. I don't know if you guys knew that. It's quite scary, right? Because they're not having a period, definitely for the 9 months that they're pregnant, but some of them take a while to regain their period afterwards. So I've had pregnant clients, a very good friend of mine actually, who had an osteoporotic fracture of her sacroiliac joint. I'd never even heard of it before myself because that's meant to be a really strong joint. 2 years after. So, you know, and they reckon that it was from her osteopenia and osteoporosis in pregnant. Although she wasn't osteoporosis now, it happened then and it just developed. So it's so important to be aware of this. And then what about the women that have 3 pregnancies, like the women I spoke about earlier, back to back, where they've now not had a period for nearly 5 years? That will definitely affect their bone strength. Right? So it's something to be super aware of. So that is the Instructor Academy Perinatal Edition, which will be kicking off the first week of October. I think it's the 8th of October. We kick off with the live modules of that. So you get me live every week, animated like this, full on, giving you as much information as possible. I say leave about an hour, but I often go over because I want you to have all your questions answered. If you can't make the live sessions at the times that they are scheduled for, it will be recorded. You will then have lifetime access to those recordings. That doesn't go away. You also get direct access to me via email, all right, or even on Instagram. It's better on email, if I'm honest. And you can get, come in and out with me on email as well. If you then needed to do a one-on-one session, we could absolutely arrange that, right? But I feel like after 9 weeks of diving into the perinatal edition and yeah, just exploring that and getting clear and confident on it, you probably won't need a one-to-one session, but the offer is always there if you do. So click on that link, go and have a read. We've got testimonials up there and information up there. There's also a button if you want to talk to me about it further. You can book a call with me and we jump on Zoom like we have today, and you can ask me any questions. Or if you're unsure in any way, I know it's always when you're signing up to a course, I have exactly the same feelings you guys do. I'm like, oh, what am I actually getting from this? And can I actually afford this? And can I actually have the time to invest in this? That's fine. We can discuss that. If I don't think that you're ready for it, I'll tell you that, because there's nothing worse than signing up for a course where neither you or I get anything out of it. That's not a win-win situation. And I'm very much in the market of win-win situations. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Those of you watching this on the recording, I'm putting the link in the email when I send out this recording to you to find out more about the perinatal edition. I only take 10 students on this at any given time because I want to give you my undivided attention. I want you to be able to interact with the other students on the screen and me. And if it's any more than that, it gets a little bit frantic on Zoom. We have a few spots left. We don't have many spots left. So if you are wondering or you want to book that call, get in quick. That's about it. Now, do we have any questions right now regarding anything that we've spoken about today? It might be that we're kind of, this is why I like to stick to an hour, not because I couldn't go on, because let's face it, I could, but it's because our up here tends to go, oof, I'm out after an hour, right? I need a break from this talking screen. If you happen to think of a question, either after this or while you're watching the recording, please email me. I don't want you to have questions left unanswered. I want you to feel confident with what we've done today. All right. It just goes then for me to say thank you. Thank you for spending your time and investing your time with me. I hope you could take something away from this. And I do hope that you check out the Instruct Academy, the Perinatal Edition, so that you can join me in October for the next 9 weeks. Thanks, Latifa. Thanks, Kiara. Bye, guys. Take care. Have a good one. I'll be in touch soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you so much.